Hi, everybody. Justine here for your week 2 of the Ever Upward Book Club. I'm actually at home this week for the book club. Sorry, I was getting some text messages. So if you have some questions about the book, especially the second half of the book, chapters 5 through epilogue, I guess, so 5 through 8 and then the epilogue, go ahead and text me or tweet me or Facebook me some messages. I'm broadcasting from home this week. I got back from Boulder on Saturday and then of course came down and got sick. And so I'm kind of catching back up. That's why I don't look the awesomest today, but you'll have to deal with it after seeing 8 clients and trying to feel better from being sick. I'm just trying to play catch up. So basically, I have a couple questions here. I don't really have that many of them, so please feel free to text or tweet any questions that you may have. I kind of wanted to go through, I know chapter 5 is evolving relationships, which is probably one of the chapters that people comment most about. I think a lot of times because really probably the most popular part of that chapter is the part where I talk about our fellow warriors, true supporters, our true friends, and then like limited supporters or incapables or something like that. It's actually an old blog post that I included in chapter 5. And I don't know, just after going through infertility treatments, I found for the most part, most of my relationships improved quite a bit in reality, mostly because I needed them a lot more and because I worked on a lot more, but also because I tried to be really open and honest with people throughout our journey, and that made our relationships get deeper. There were a couple of relationships that I write about in chapter 5 that were hurt throughout the journey. I don't know, I'm a therapist, so obviously I believe in things change and people change. So I hope that maybe those relationships can continue to get better and improve and maybe even come back. People grow, evolve, and change. And so I believe relationships do too. But I think chapter 5 a lot of times is people's one of their favorite chapters. I feel like I'm like forgetting the book at this point. I haven't even really looked at it. It's terrible. The other chapters that I wanted to talk about were, so chapter 6, Reigniting the Spark. It's the marriage chapter. And that's actually one of the questions that I got sent to me again today was, how did Chad's process throughout our journey differ from mine? And I think I touched on this a little bit last week during the book club, but I'll touch on it again. I think a lot of times we just have to remember that men and women process things really differently. We're wired so differently. So I think throughout the infertility journey, we have to try to really remember that. I think that a lot of the times Chad really kind of had to hold his stuff together because I was losing it. And I think I said that last week. But in the chapter in the book, in Reigniting the Spark, I kind of talk about how I came up with an idea actually from a fellow blogger about a date of month that we planned together, or I actually planned, and then I kind of surprised him each month and reminded him of what it was, and we went on a date a month, and we posted it on Facebook, and people loved the idea, and a lot of people stole the idea, which I stole the idea too, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think that Reigniting the Spark was a huge piece for a lot of people in this book because I think unfortunately statistics will show that a lot of marriages don't survive through infertility treatments, whether or not it's right away or years and years later. And when we think about how stressful the infertility journey really is on marriage, the financial piece, just the emotional turmoil, the losses, the lifelong losses, no matter what your happy ending is, whether or not it's child full or with children or adoption or whatever it might be, your family has to figure out what works best for you and your marriage. You have to turn towards one another and not turn away towards one another or turn away from one another. And that's how you reignite the spark. And so I do think that like throughout the infertility journey and even thereafter, especially after kids come, it is really important that you spend time with your spouse. That's one of the, couples counseling 101 is that you have a monthly date. And that's really, really true. And I think that really needs to be part of a lot of infertility couples' journey as they go through this journey. Because otherwise it becomes about petri dishes and schedules and shots and the 2-week waits. And it's just too much for any couple to survive, I think, in reality. Let's see. Chapter 7. I'm surprised I didn't get any questions about the Mason house. So I'm actually here at Mason house. I am in what is formerly known as the seashell room. So there's seashells on the ceiling. There's a picture of that room in the book. This is also now the dog's room. So that's where their crates are, but it's also my writing room and my meditation and prayer room. It's the room with the most windows in the house. It's beautiful. It's on the opposite end of the house than the bedrooms, and it's where I spend my time meditating and writing in my writing chair. And I light the same candle every time. It's a Target candle. Sweet sangria is the scent. I don't know. It's orange. Everything's orange. So it's my power color. And it smells really good too. The last chapter in Ever Upward is Chapter 8 is Emerging to Own Myself Again. It was based off of emerging women. So I just want to make sure I didn't get a text message up. That's where it kind of all started. It ended on my training with Brené Brown and the Daring Way last February. Both of those trainings changed my life and really kind of catapulted everything that's happened in the last couple of years for me. Emerging Women has changed everything. The people that I have met, both friends and the professionals that I have met, have changed so much of my life. That's also, that's even where I was last week with Erin Weed training. It was amazing. Then the Daring Way training was obviously life-changing for myself, for my own recovery, but also because the Daring Way curriculum is incredible for everybody that needs to learn how to show up, be seen, and live brave, as we say, in any area of your life or all areas of your life, hopefully. So, and then finally the epilogue actually just starts off with my dad's accident. It's kind of weird. This weekend is the 1-year anniversary of when my dad fell off of a ladder. They've been living with us since June. So yes, my parents live with us still. Hopefully they'll move out. They're literally downstairs. I can hear my voice feedback. They're watching this with Chad downstairs in the basement. We're just one big happy family. And really just kind of, I guess, like, I haven't read the end of the book in a long time. It kind of just ends, it ends with like defining my own happy ending, which is obviously really telling considering I just changed the subtitle. Today, I actually went down to the studio down in St. Louis City and re-recorded the subtitle for the audiobook. Literally took a whole 3 minutes, cost me $75. But I know changing the subtitle will benefit this book. I know that a lot of people may have been disappointed that I took out the word child-free, but for me, I kind of knew that people going through the infertility journey, dreaming of a child, would never buy a book that had the word child-free on it. I wouldn't have when we were in the middle of it. So I knew I had to change the subtitle. So I hope it helps get the word out of this book a little bit more. We're a month away from launch, which is scary and surreal and also feels like it's been taking forever in some ways. I know some of you out there watching might be wondering still what the Thunderclap campaign is. And if you've seen that on the Facebook page or on my Twitter page, Thunderclap is this like organization, I guess now, that like it's literally how they describe themselves is that they are a social media flash mob. So all it basically is that you give them permission to post a post that I've already written for you on April 7th, which is the bookstore launch of Ever Upward. So if you sign up for my Thunderclap, you literally have to click 3 things, I believe, and it gives Thunderclap permission to post on your Twitter and or your Facebook wall the one post that I've already written for you. And so the idea is that all at the same time on April 7th, tens of thousands of people, should I meet my goal of 100 people, I really tried to go big and I went for 500 people and it blew up in my face. I just lowered it down to the minimum goal of 100 people. I think we're at like 54 people for the Thunderclap, which has a reach of over like 44,000 people, which is just incredible. And so what that basically means is that like those 54 people, 53 people that have signed up for Thunderclap on April 7th at like 10 a.m., I believe, on their wall, on their Facebook wall or on their Twitter wall, it will post like define your own happy ending, go to bookstores today to buy Ever Upward or something like that, whatever I've written. So what that means is that it shows up on your wall to all your hundreds of friends that I don't necessarily have access to. This platform building feels impossible and sucks. And I feel really alone in it. And so that's why we're trying all of these different things to kind of bolster sales and get the word out, because infertility and just recovery from whatever, anxiety and depression and infertility or whatever you're recovering from, is not the most mainstream story in the media. And I would like Ever Upward to be one of those stories so that we can help more people, basically. Before we get too far away from Mason House, Chad just texted me, what was the best part of the Mason House journey? The best part of the Mason House journey, it's got to be all of it. There wasn't a best part. It was just incredible. The best part of it is the years and years that we get to build memories in this house. Like, it was actually supposed to be last weekend, but it's going to be in a couple weeks. We were going to have our first annual Winter Olympics. So Summer Olympics includes children because there's a pool for them to swim in. And while the adults play games like cornhole and hillbilly golf and washers, which some of you in the cities might not know what those games are. And then Winter Olympics only includes the adults because it's indoors. So it will be shuffleboard and some Wii games and charades. So we had to cancel that because of snow. Winter Olympics was literally canceled due to winter. So we rescheduled that for, actually, I think it's the first day of spring, which is awesome. But the best part of Mason House is just being able to be here and build our lives here, build our family here, be with the dogs, be able to have this place for mom and dad to stay with us while they've needed to, while dad's recovering and while they are getting their new house ready here in St. Louis. So that's the best part of Mason House. Okay, let's get to some of the questions that were sent to me. I like this question. How can IVF begin or become a regular dinner conversation for those going through it? I mean, I obviously don't recommend just like literally blurting out like we're doing IVF or like we're doing infertility or I'm infertile. I just had that discussion with a client and I asked her to stop referring to herself as I'm infertile and kind of like slapping people upside the head with it, because in some ways it kind of was a defense mechanism for her, like to get them to shut up or to try to get them to be more sensitive to how they were asking questions, which I totally get. But I asked her to, instead of like identifying as I'm infertile, as saying we're struggling with infertility and we're having trouble having a second baby, and just honing that struggle and see what that felt like. And she had to look at me this week and say, I think she said something like, yeah, it felt better. I still kind of just want to smack him upside the head. And I said, well, yeah, of course. And you can do that. But that doesn't help you be understood or feel empathy anymore. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we want, is empathy. But I think infertility, I think one will probably be no choice but to be a regular dinner conversation, because when you look at the numbers, they're staggering. Some studies say 1 in 6. Most studies will say 1 in 8 couples struggles to conceive. 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in a loss. And 1 in 160 pregnancies will end in a child born still. When you look at those numbers, when you sit down and see those numbers, they're staggering. And that means that this is affecting so many more people than you have ever dreamt. And our silence is suffocating us. And so, like, I think part of it is changing the way we ask questions, like we talked about last week, like changing the tone in your conversation. Asking things about like your family planning in a different way, from a place of love and curiosity, not this like judgment, because it feels judgy. But I also think that like those of us going through it, we have to start talking about it more. It's the only way the landscape will change. It's the only way that we're going to get the support that we need. It's the only way education is going to happen. We cannot ask people to get us and then not try to help them get it, I guess, if that makes sense. Another question sent by this person: how did you learn to not be embarrassed and gain the courage to speak up? I kind of am not the right person to answer this, I feel like, because, well, no, I am. I've always been pretty outspoken. I've also been pretty vulnerable and open with my life. When you go through 2 back surgeries in high school and you have to depend on everybody else to do stuff for you, including taking you to the bathroom, you learn how to be pretty open and really quickly. But I think that like to gain the courage to talk about this stuff was something different. I talk about it in the book a little bit. It's probably going to be more so like, it's probably been more so in my blog that I've written about it. But like, I learned that I kind of shut down my voice after my back surgeries because I did feel so alone in it. I mean, so many people helped me. So many people loved me and did the very best that they knew how. But at the end of the day, what they really gave me was pity, because how else do you feel for a 14 and a 17-year-old in a body cast? Like, it's hard to have empathy for that because it's hard to understand. And 20 years later, what I learned is that I felt that exact same experience after going through infertility, after learning that I was not going to be able to have children. And I got the same kind of responses. It was pity. It was sympathy. And I felt so alone in it. It made me feel even more alone than I already feel as a 35-year-old woman without children. And what I learned is I kind of made those connections between then and now, that the only way that I close that gap is if I speak up, if I choose to be courageous, if I own my story and I tell it. And for me, that meant the book and trying to get on TV for interviews and trying to get people to tweet about it and trying to get it noticed and trying to get in magazines, all of this stuff that I'm trying to do. But for you, it might not mean that. It doesn't mean that you have to be the poster child or the blogger or the author. It just means that you need to own your story, and you need to own all the parts of your story, even the parts that we're not really crazy about, or the parts that we wish we had done differently, and we need to learn from them. But to own all those parts, to be able to speak up about them, is where you will find the courage to be who you are. That's how you find the courage to speak up, no matter what the issue is. I don't care if it's infertility or anxiety or depression. Hi, Gracie. It's whatever it is. Own your story and speak up. Gracie came in to check in on me just now. I would have shown you her, but she walked away too fast. Let's see. Next question. Who has been your biggest critic? See, I got a Facebook notification. My biggest critic, I have had some personal critics, for sure. But especially when it comes to the personal critics, and the anonymous critics, as we learn in the Daring Way curriculum and the work of Brené Brown, if you're not in the arena getting your butt kicked with me, I'm not interested in your feedback. And that's been a hard pill for me to swallow, especially the bigger the blog gets, the more people that read the book, hopefully the bigger that this gets. What I am learning, I've learned 2 things. Oh, there. Okay. Hi. Sorry, I lost connection or something like that. That was really weird. Anyways, one of the biggest critics that I have, child free by choice group. So they like to oftentimes write on my blog posts that I need to go catch my wambulance. I don't know what that means. They are sometimes not very mature in their comments, but they are probably literally my biggest critics, the child free by choice group. That's probably my biggest critic. Myself is my biggest critic. But like I said, unless you're going to show up, be seen, and live brave in the arena, like we do in the Daring White curriculum, I don't really have room in my life for your feedback, because I'm going to be over here trying to live my life wholeheartedly and vulnerably and courageously. And sometimes I am a hot freaking mess doing that, kind of like I am tonight. So it is what it is. I'm human and I am not perfect, and I'm not going to please all of you. I hope that you like my stuff and that I can say some of the things that you can identify with and that you can learn from. That's my goal. What am I doing now to spread awareness? So I'm actually doing a couple things. Like right now on the blog, I'm doing a guest post every week. Actually, this week I did 2. So I have reached out to some of my really good blogging friends, and I'm running one of their guest pieces each week, running up to launch on April 7th. I also I posted something today about the One More Shot film, which I posted today on my social media that every time I watch their trailer, I cry and I get goosebumps because I'm just so proud of what they're doing and the guts that it takes to do what they're doing. And so please go to the Ever Upward Facebook page or my Twitter wall and find links to One More Shot. They need some funding to finish up editing for the film. And they'll be delivering their baby girl here pretty soon in a few weeks, which I'm so excited for them for. Their film is very, very important. So I'm trying to be a little bit involved with that and try to figure out how I can help. I'm also recently been getting involved with the SHARE organization, which is a national organization. SHARE is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Organization. And they ran one of my pieces in their newsletter for March and April. I actually am going to have a trivia table with my good friends Kevin and Julie and our other friends Seth and Sam and Clint and Janine. We're going to have a trivia table at their trivia night. And then I believe Chad and I are going to the gala with my new friend Debbie, she's the SHARE director. So I'm really looking forward to getting involved with the SHARE. I'm also they have a retreat coming up in May, and they've asked me to come and work with their staff for a couple hours. So I'm going to kind of working with her on that, and really want to get more involved. When I met with Debbie, I told her, I'll admit this to you guys because it was a concern that I had. I was concerned that, and this is some of the feedback that I've had, one of my critics, you can say. SHARE is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Organization, and so they kind of consider themselves to kind of have a very specific window of, early pregnancy loss, late pregnancy loss, and then early infancy loss. Because once you kind of go past a certain age, it probably is a different organization like SIDS or something like that. So it's a pretty, specific organization. But I told her that I want to help, and I believe that I'm one of their people, and many of their people are one of my people, because a lot of people in the SHARE organization also struggle with infertility, or they have the losses of infertility. And so, but I told her, I admitted to her that I was fearful that people would not consider my losses to be losses because our embryos never took. We transferred 3 embryos. Michelle never got pregnant. There was not a miscarriage. They were just 3 of the 50% of embryos that do not attach. And so I told her that, and she just kind of looked at me, and she's like, and she actually said one of my blog titles back to me. She goes, "Loss is loss," and she kind of explained to me their window, and so I'm really excited to be involved with SHARE. I've been praying a lot about that. I don't know exactly what it looks like, and I don't think they do either, but I'm very, very excited about this collaboration to see where it goes. Other stuff that I'm doing for awareness is just I talk about it everywhere I go. I will always continue to talk about it, and I will continue to write about it. I've already started to write the sequel to Ever Upward, and because frankly I need help letting go of this one and to let it succeed. So I started writing the sequel. And I'll just continue to get involved in other organizations. I ultimately would like to be involved with Resolve a little bit more. They're one of the bigger organizations, and I would like to get infertility on the grander scheme of things, especially National Infertility Awareness Month week is coming up, April 20th through 27th, I believe. It's a huge week. I'm really hoping that Ever Upward can get some attention. So if any of you have connections or know someone that knows someone that knows someone, you never know who will see an Ever Upward post that you share on your Facebook wall or on your Twitter. But again, those statistics are staggering. So most likely you know a lot more people than you think you do who have struggled with this battle. Let's see, other questions. How would you describe the infertility IVF community, like the support and the blogger connections you have made? I've made some really good friendships throughout this journey. Some really good friendships. Maybe one day I'll get to meet them all in person. I think I have friends. I have friends in lots in Canada. I have a lot of people in Canada, all over the United States. Ireland is probably my furthest. Marie's my friend in Ireland. Her blog, Journeying Beyond Breast Cancer, is an awesome blog, and it's huge. She does such a good job. Those relationships, they're interesting, and they're interesting for me because I'm done with my journey, and a lot of them are still in it. I have a couple, like I have one friend that's getting ready to start treatments. I have one that's about 7 weeks pregnant. I have one that's just starting the adoption journey. I have one that had really worked to accept a child-free life and then got pregnant, shockingly. I have one that is still looking for some diagnostic information. I have one that is working on child-free living. So we're all at different places. It's kind of crazy. And it's not like we have this like group of friends. Like, yeah, they're all friends with each other. I think somehow. I don't know what their friendships are, but it's weird. It's like when it's online, it's weird. You don't have to worry about other dynamics. So the support in the infertility community is incredible, and the friendships are incredible. I will say, however, it can be very easily unhealthy. I struggle a lot sometimes on Twitter. I don't love, I do Twitter because I need to, and I do love the humor in it and the pace of it once in a while, but I'm definitely more drawn towards Facebook, unfortunately. But I think you have to be careful of some of the online support that you seek. A lot of the times it can be really, really negative. I also think that they play doctor a lot of the times. Although definitely talking amongst each other can sometimes be way better than your medical team, but always get a second opinion. I think you just have to check your intention. I think that's with everything with social media, though. I just had a client tonight that was struggling with social media, and she's like, I read your social media post. I read it over and over and over, and I'm still trying to figure out how to make it work for me. And so like I wrote a post called Making Friends with Social Media, and I think this counts for like your online support groups and things like that. Like, make sure you're using this stuff for positive. If you are walking away from it feeling worse because you're comparing yourself, or you're upset, or you're angry, or you feel sad or pissed off, stop. And you need to kind of detox from it, and then you need to make up a new relationship with it. I definitely had to do that with social media. I had to completely detox from it in reality, and then kind of like slowly get it back into my life and change the rules. Like, I use it for what I believe it was intended for, to educate people, to make people laugh, to connect, and to watch all the kids in my lives grow up, to be honest. but you do definitely need to remind yourself, some people on a daily basis, that you are comparing someone's highlight reels to your background story. That's what social media is. No one posts the crappy part on there. Some people do. I sometimes post crappy part. I have one friend that she's just the most vulnerable person ever, and I love it. She's just the most brave person on social media, and I think it's awesome. Let's see. What's next for you? What can we expect to see in the future? Like I said, I've already started the sequel to Ever Upward. There is a companion ebook coming out probably, I would like to say probably very quickly after launch, maybe May. It's actually chapter 4 in Ever Upward is Choosing Change. So it's the book of like how I change the way I feed myself, how I change my exercise, my coping. It's just how I change my life. It's how I not figured out, oh God, because it will never be figured out, but like how I work my recovery. And so I wrote in a weekend, it just kind of came out of me. It was crazy. And a companion ebook. I called it Lessons in Ever Upward, tips, tricks, resources, and ideas in self-care. So I'm just going to release it probably on Kindle for a few dollars, several dollars, if that, probably in May. And it just like kind of extends chapter 4 of like kind of like, what meditations am I trying now? What coloring things am I trying now? How have I changed up my self-care? So there's that coming out. I would love to think, no, I'm going to say that Ever Upward will be picked up by a big publisher, and maybe actually could get a contract for the second book. If not, I'll publish it myself. What I would like to think is next for me is that this next year will be even crazier than the last, because the book will be out. And that's when this will actually take off. It's kind of feels like the most drawn out book launch ever at this point. But no one tells you how to do this stuff. No matter how many blogs I read, or how many books I read, there's like so many different ways to launch a book. So I don't know exactly what is next for me. I would love for it to be a TED Talk. Maybe Good Morning America or the doctors or something like that. I would love to say that, because infertility needs to be on that stage and needs to be talked about on a bigger scale. And I think I could help that, I guess. 14, or it says like, what does your chosen family look like? Chosen families, gosh, so many. Devin and Jocelyn, my niece and nephew. All the kiddos here in St. Louis, especially Clinton and Janine's boys and Seth and Sam's boys. So they all of our friends have 3 boys. Most of our friends have 3 boys. So Evan and Lane and Noah and Isaac and Caleb and Andrew. And then we have like our extended chosen family that's like not here in St. Louis in reality. So I have McKinley in Las Vegas that we're going to go see this weekend because she turns 2, and she's my goddaughter. And I committed when she was born that we will be there every year for her birthday, or around her birthday. And then my friend Kristen has 3 kids in Florida. Ben and Michelle are up in Indiana. We have not seen them in a long time, and I miss them. So they have 3 kids up there. Devin and Jocelyn right now are in DC, but then they'll be in Israel for 2 years. So our chosen family includes our family and also all of our friends that have become family and support us and grow with us and let us be part of their crazy families and invite us to the Christmas concerts and the recitals and the Christmas parties and the birthday parties and things like that. Let's see. I think that is all my questions. Let me double check that there's nothing on Twitter. Nope. Let me double check Facebook. So again, what I would love is if you guys could really support the Thunderclap, because I could really use that backup. 3 clicks and it posts for you. If you could then share it on your social media wall to ask people to sign up for it, that would be pretty awesome too, because I need help with spreading the word, that is for sure. Let me double check. Yep, nothing on Twitter. So I think that's it for tonight. Sorry it wasn't as like exciting as last week maybe. And And hopefully in 2 weeks when we meet again for the first half of the book. So we're just going to skip a week, and then I'm going to talk about the first half of the book and then the second half of the book again 2 weeks in a row. So that's the plan. Hopefully I'll look better than I look, and I'll have some more questions from you guys. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Please sign up for the Thunderclap because it would be so much appreciated. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks.